Well, good morning. How are you all today? And welcome to Integrative Preparedness. Uh, is there a planned starvation coming? If you control the food, you control the people, and that means you can either make them do whatever you want them to do or you can kill them. And a lot of people are concerned about that. I've read reports about the possibility of, not just increased prices, and I know everybody's excited about eggs right now, but general food products, but a potential actual collapse of the food system. So let's talk about that. And I don't know if there's anything more crucial than that. So grab yourself a cup of. I had somebody ask me, by the way. They said, most of us coffee drinkers, hey Steve, they said, most of us coffee drinkers drink our mugs out of the same mug or cup every morning, but you keep changing. You drink them out of different ones. Why is there something that I'm missing? And I said, well, the thing you're missing is I have many mugs and cups that I like, and so I have different ones. This is one of our. This is one you can't get. Now you can get a lot of our mugs on our website, but this is one you can't get. And of course, you're seeing the other side. Prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow, and there's no better advice than that. And then semper paratus is our motto, which means always prepared. Okay, but on the other side, this is one that was given or made available, sold at a very cheap price at our cost to the people who came to our first annual summer gathering. So you can't get this if you weren't there, but it's one of my favorites because it brings back good memories of meeting so many of you all out there. And so this is the one I'm drinking out of now. But yeah, I switch up. I like different things. And every one of our mugs has a message on it, and I like it. It reminds me of it. So let me have a sip, and then we will continue. Many of you, and as I've said, you go to the store, you see the raising prices. I'm going to tell you what's going on. Well, nobody knows exactly. Some know exactly what's going on. You and I don't know exactly what's going on, although we have our suspicions. But I'm also going to tell you, what you need to be doing about it. Many of you are familiar with the Irish famine. Food has been used as a weapon for forever. Probably since the first caveman took the dead squirrel away from the other caveman. It's a way to control people and sustain yourself, to build yourself up and weaken the enemy. We see that in the concentration camps throughout the years. Bare rations keep people from being able to rise up. So many of you are familiar with the Irish famine, which was in the 1840s. It wasn't a famine. It was a genocide. It was a planned starvation. I encourage you to look into it. Many of you are also familiar with the Ukrainian Holodomor. That resulted in millions of deaths of Ukrainians back in the 1930s. So not quite 100 years after the Irish famine. And then now there's a question there as to whether that was purposeful or not, or whether it was the result of, Stalin's bad planning and then just continued. And they said, well, seems to be working and keeping these Ukrainians weak and getting rid of some of them, so let's continue it. That's debated by those who studied it. But the Irish famine is not. Ireland was, of course, occupied by Great Britain, has been for 800 years. And it was a way that, they had the Irish peasants out there that they made it illegal for them to do anything, own property, own anything, speak their own language, worship, their own religion. But they were the slaves, essentially, of the British in Ireland. And they said, and Ireland was a very rich country as far as producing food goods. But the British, the English, said, well, these stinking Irish, they're eating too much of our food, so they imported the potato into Ireland. A lot of people think the potato came from Ireland. It didn't. It came from the Americas, but it was a cheap food for the slaves. It was slave food. And so they imported the potato into Ireland and said, okay, from now on, you Irish can only eat potatoes. That's why potatoes is associated with Ireland. And keep your stinking hands off the rest of the food which you're producing, which then was shipped out of Ireland or into to the estates, to the English nobility, or shipped back to England to be sold at a profit. And and when that worked. I mean, it was, you kind of wonder, when you wonder how a people can be subdued, and you realize that the Irish people were a pretty warlike people. I mean, they're a Celtic people as opposed to a Teutonic or Germanic people like the English are. The Celts were very warlike. The problem is, and I should probably make a whole another video about this, is that the Celts can't get along. They never come together. They've come together twice in history. One to sack Rome, and then they didn't take over. They just went back. There's 150 tribes, Celtic tribes, but they would never come together. And then once to throw out the Vikings under Brian Boru. But there's an old saying: you can't get three Irishmen to agree on where to have lunch, let alone to come together in a common cause. And that was their weakness. So they were able to be subdued by the control of their food. And then when the Irish potato famine hit, and it was a fungus that went through the potatoes, people started starving. And they say that 1 million Irish died with what they called green mouth by trying to eat grass. And, since we're not cows with 4 stomachs, we're not able to digest grass. But they had no potatoes, and the English kept shipping food out of Ireland and starving the Irish out. There are many great songs about this. Maybe I'll post a couple. I've posted many of these famine songs and Irish rebel songs up on the Patreon channel. Maybe I'll stick a couple up there today for anybody who wants to kind of get the feel of the famine. Well, is a famine coming our way? That's the question. And if it is, what's the cause? Now, is it purposeful? I'm going to say yes. Okay, I'm going to say yes. Now, I always say also, never ascribe to evil what you can more easily explain by simple stupidity. But nobody's this stupid, and I think this is planned. They've decimated, well, more than decimated probably, which just means getting rid of 10%. But they have taken out so many of the chicken flocks around. The war on eggs now we're importing eggs. America is importing eggs, and the cartels are actually smuggling eggs up here now, along with people and fentanyl. How about that? Maybe they'll start hiding fentanyl in eggs. But it's going to be it's going to create a black market. I don't know what you all pay. I was at Aldi yesterday. It's $5.97. Is that horrendous? Yes, it's horrendous when you compare it to 77 cents we were paying for a dozen a couple of years ago. Realize right now that we are reaping the results of the previous administration. So this is not on Trump. This is the wheels were already set in motion on this, and hopefully something will be able to be done. The price of beef, be prepared for it to start skyrocketing. Okay, so chickens are going to be very soon. They're going to be much more rare and much more expensive. Eggs, I read an article that said expect another 45 to 50% increase in not just eggs, but perhaps all across the board in food. We will see, but it's best to prepare for that, and in case it happens, then not prepare for it, hoping that it doesn't. Okay? And I'll tell you in a minute my thoughts on preparing for it. So very possibly, the crazies that are involved in this. Bill Gates and the population reduction, and we need to get rid of the cows because they're farting methane all over the place. And if the libs had just quit talking, that'd cut down a lot on our pollution. But there's a large group of people that are, of course, against eating animals. They're just as crazy as PETA, but for different reasons. So what do you do? This is where prepping comes in. I got a great email from a guy, and I wish that I'd brought my laptop in here to read it. Maybe I'll read it on another one, because I'm sure this won't be the last one that I make about this. But it was about how his preparedness through the years. He's an old time prepper. He was an old brick mason who how his preparedness had brought him through hard times and allowed him to help other people, which is another lesson, and it's something that that people should keep in mind. And proper preparedness is not just for you, to ride those bumps in life, but to be able to help other people. Uh, so how should you approach? First off, if now the people who are going to be really hurt by raising prices, and you see, this is not here's the thing. This is a perfect example of why inflation is not the cause of rising prices. And I've said that so many times, but people, or not. Let me say that differently. It's not necessarily the cause. It's not the same as rising prices. Very often it is the cause of it, but it's not the same. And it's important for those who want to learn to understand the difference. We're not experiencing great inflation right now, meaning the government isn't printing a bunch of new money. But the prices of food and eggs and everything like that is going up. Why? Because of shortages. Okay. So anyway, there's your economics lesson for today. Inflation is simply an increase in the money supply, which depresses its value. So, okay, enough of Econ 101. But the people who are going to be hurt by this the most are those on limited or stagnant income. Okay, those people who haven't taken upon themselves to take charge of their own income. They work for a wage, or they're on Social Security, or they're hourly, and there's nothing they can do. They can ask for some overtime, and maybe not, maybe they won't get it, whatever. But even a little bit of that doesn't really help, and it never establishes financial independence, which means it never establishes independence. If you aren't financially independent, you're not independent. You're not. I know there are a lot of people who live a very low demand lifestyle, subsistence lifestyle. They try to save. They try to live below their means, or they live at their means, but their means are very low, and they don't try to increase their means. And they think that that's preparing them for the downfall of whatever economic system, food, whatever. It doesn't. And that's what I've tried to get across for the last however many years I've been doing this. 7 years since I've been doing this. Is that is the wrong way to prepare. Not just being afraid of things and going, okay, I'm stocking a bunch of stuff down in the shed or in my basement or something like this, and I don't want to get out there. I want to live according to what I make. You see, that kind of person is getting get hit the hardest in a situation like this, and you can't get out of it. You earn your way out of a financial crisis, and a food crisis is a financial crisis, and that's what people need to understand. Now, those who have taken upon themselves to produce their own food, they are in the best position. As a matter of fact, in my first book, I think at the beginning of the third chapter, my first book, The Reversion, many of you have read it. If you haven't, you should. You'll love it. I just have this one. The whole series is the Stonemont series. But the first thing that Jim does when he gets home, and we see him, I think, at the beginning of chapter 3, when he's home, he's out there on his tractor. He has about 2 acres planted in food. But he's out there on his tractor disking up another 3 or 4 acres. He knows that he needs to produce more. Okay, first book of the Stonemont series, but food is number, and then I cover a lot more. how other ways to get food and such after a total collapse of everything. It's the Stone Mott series. For those of you who don't know, I wrote them. What is it? The reversion, the revival, the renewal, and appeal to heaven, the blessings of freedom, hostages to fortune, and the newest one, On Wings Like Eagles. And you can get them through Amazon, or you can get them directly from me. And the website for both Amazon and me is down below, stonemont.us. You will learn everything in the world you need to know. You will learn everything you want to know and things you didn't even realize you needed to know in these books. And it's a great story. So if you want them from me, I get to sign them for you, and I love that. So that's the way to do that, stonemont.us. That's where you also get our mugs and everything like that. And I forgot to tell you, I'll get back on food in just half a second, but the next gathering is going to be October 4th. We're going to have it. It's going to be a little bit nicer weather. It was pretty hot in June here in the Kansas City area. So the next one is October 4th. This gives people more time to plan for it, to get in their vacation requests or whatever, okay? And it's going to be in the Kansas City area, and I'll be giving more details later on. Let me have another sip, and then let's get back to food. So, if you're not producing food, you're just relying on your stocks, which is only intended to see you through until you produce, and the world delivery system. And that means you are depending on people who don't have your best interest at heart and might want to enslave you or kill you, right? That's right. They want to control you. Control the food, control the people. There is no better way than to control the food. I know a lot of people got into preparing because of this, and they had, I'll tell you what really made me, I've always been in preparedness, but what really made me kick it up several gears is when I realized that a CME, a coronal mass ejection, which is what my books are about. Total collapse of everything. And how a prepared family not only continues to live very well, prepare well today, live well tomorrow, but are able to help other people and then rebuild community. So when I realized that a CME was assured, essentially the science tells us it's going to happen. A grid down for other reasons may or may not happen, but a CME is going to happen. We are assured of that. And I realized, okay, it's going to happen sometime, and I could just imagine. I made myself imagine my kids starving to death, and that gave me. Although I'd lived a prepared life pattern since I was a Boy Scout, right? So that's 60 years. But that's what made me realize how thin is the thread we are hanging by, okay, when it comes to food, and that you had better produce your own. Those who don't produce their own, and it's starting to get up to gardening season, right? I'm going to do another one. I'll probably make this a separate one. Are ranchers or farmers going to be in better shape? I'll address that. And it's much different life, much different lifestyle, much different demands, much different limitations, all of that. But those who don't produce are going to be the ones who are most vulnerable to the slings and arrows of the powers that be, right? Okay, so if a lot of you do, and I love, particularly over on Patreon, a lot of people will come on and leave very long comments on about everything that they do, their homesteads, everything they produce, how they how they've come, how they've developed over the years and all that. And I love reading those. And there are good examples for other people to show you it can be done. It can be done, and it should be done. And I think if you haven't started on it yet, now's the time to do it. So for those of you who do raise some of your own food, I would suggest that you raise more. Every year, you should try to get a larger percentage of your total food intake from what you produce yourself. Now, I'm not going to come on here and say that I produce everything that my family eats. I don't. We live in a world here where we have been able to depend on production and delivery by other people. And so, even though we're, pretty well prepared and have plans for a collapse, no, on a daily basis, no, I don't. I don't go out in my backyard and collect eggs, and I don't go out and harvest wheat and bake the bread from it, and I don't go out and kill a cow and carve up our steaks. I don't do that. I live in the modern world, but I have arranged ways to continue to live well if it all comes crashing down. Now, this situation to where the shortage of food, well, let me say this way: the rather than the shortage of food, the situation is coming, which is going to keep people from being able to buy as much food as they used to, or have to buy a lower grade food. That has to do with your financial strength, and this is why I pound on this. Increase your financial preparedness, because these rising prices are not going to hurt people who have plenty of money. They're just not. Okay, eggs are $5.97. Okay, that's still 50 cents an egg. That's pretty cheap, to be honest. Pretty cheap. So if you have 2 eggs, let's say you have 3 eggs for breakfast, that's only $1.50. If that is hurting you, you're living too close to the edge of your money. Okay, you should have a big cushion in there, and you shouldn't notice it. I want my daughter to bake brownies tonight. Okay, it's going to take 2 eggs. Am I going to say, we're not going to have brownies because the eggs are too expensive? No, put $1 worth of eggs in there, and let's have some brownies. Okay, the extent to which these kinds of things affect the quality of your life it is because of your relative financial preparedness. I'm not even going to say financial strength, but that's what it is. And it's within the realm of possibility for everyone to become financially stronger and financially more prepared. And that is, you've heard me say it so many times, that's the drum I beat, right? In addition to everything else. If you are financially strong, the many things that happen in the world are not going to bother you. And a lot of people put that down, and that's too bad. In the preparedness world, I hate to say that there is a certain bigotry among those who kind of live a subsistence life against those who have more. That's wrong. That is that's too bad. And the refusal to try to elevate yourself out of that is what's going to hurt you in the long term. It doesn't make someone bad because they've earned money or worked for it or built things or built a business. It makes them smart. And you know what else it makes them? It makes them a preparedness-minded person. Not somebody who has just put a bunch of beans and rice in 5-gallon buckets and then hope that they can withstand whatever's coming. No. The person who's gone out there and built something, been a part of the world, and developed their strength. We talk about your mental, your emotional, your spiritual, and your physical strength. Your financial strength is what gets you across a lot of finish lines in life, to be real honest. And you can do it. So if you happen to be one of those people who have always kind of felt or been made to feel that doing better financially was somehow wrong, and I tell you, the whole world likes to sing that song. There's a song out there that I think is just horrible. Well, a couple of the ones that are just horrible, and they kind of reinforce a negative aspect. One is, and I kind of like the song, but the message is horrible, and that is one, "I'll take the dirt road." You all familiar with that? I'll take the dirt road. It's all I know. Blah blah blah. Been walking it for years. Let's see if I can remember been walking it for years. It goes where I need to go. It ain't easy, but life ain't supposed to be. What see, those are all kind of victimization lines, And then it goes on, and my daddy said, Some people don't work hard for their money, but they won't know which way to go. I don't. It's a false. It's a straw man. It's again kind of bringing down people who make more money, and it's elevating the person who somehow wants to continue to find some kind of honor in poverty. And there's another one. I forget what it is. Mr. Rose. Well, you some of you will maybe I'll post these on the Patreon channel. Mr. Roosevelt was going to save us all, and Mama got sick, and we moved to town, and I don't know, but it reinforces this idea that we're just making it, and that's a peasant attitude. That's not a PMP attitude. That is not a preparedness-minded person's attitude. That is a survivor's attitude, and only surviving ain't much fun. Living is fun, and you can do it. Now, I'll just tap this on because I've made videos about this before, and I made a much longer one over on the Prepping for Prosperity channel, and that is take charge of your finances, take charge of your income, build a business, start a business. Do you have a craft? Do you have a trade? Can you make things and sell them to other people? What would $500 extra a month help you? How would that change, how you're doing? How would that change your life? How would that change your preparedness? Okay, $500 a month. How about $2,000 a month? Easily done. Easily done. Okay, all right. Is this, and don't ask, don't come on here and say, well, how do you do it? I don't answer questions like that on YouTube. Sometimes I answer them on the Patreon channel. If you're not with us over there, that link is down below too. Come join us. You'll learn a lot. But what's coming? It's going to be hard for people who aren't prepared, to be real honest. And it's not going to be that hard for people who are prepared. So that's always the difference, isn't it? And that's what we always come to. That's the lesson. Be prepared. Prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. Okay? Prepare well today in order to be able to buy eggs and not get hurt tomorrow. That's the message. That's always, always the message. So what's coming? Worrying about it, being scared doesn't help. The Bible says 365 times, do not be afraid, once for every day. Okay? Do not fear. Don't fear. Prepare. Okay? All right. Y'all have a good day. And as we always say, we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. Semper paratus, always prepared. And you all have a good day. Bye-bye.